moving on to the slang. So can you define a few of these for me? A birder or birdo?
Oh, yes. I should actually look what I said in the big Twitch.
I can get it for you in front of me.
Yeah,
if you want.
a birder is what sort of more serious bird watchers like to call themselves, because bird watcher has a bit of a frivolous or not very hard sort of reputation. Like bird watcher could be anything from little old lady who feeds the pigeons. So people who get serious about it like to call themselves, at least in Australia and England, birders.
Yeah. The Aussie's birdo.
Yeah, Aussie. It used to be birdo, but that's become a little bit naff and passé, I think. A bit cute, but it is that Australian thing of always wanting to put an O or an E on the end of it. So you couldn't do birdie, so you did birdo. But it's gone out of fashion a bit. Very few, more only the really older birders still call themselves birdos.
And what about dip or to dip out?
A dip would be as happened for some people with the tufted duck. They were away, and by the time they got back to Melbourne and down to Werribee, the duck had flown. And so dipping out is a very unpleasant experience. It's when you go to find it, when you look for a bird that you know that has been there and you don't see it.
What about a stringer?
A stringer is basically, we were talking about stringers before. It's the worst label you can have in the birding community, and that is somebody who does. It's not about making a mistake and misidentifying a bird. That everybody does that, and that's accepted. It's the people who either don't accept that they've misidentified a bird and stay with that original identification, or they completely fabricate a sighting.
So there's even that malicious nature within people where they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to, write down that I saw this, but I didn't really.
Definitely. And it's a very hard thing to prove because it's subjective. How do we know what that person saw? But at times, the people who fabricate definitely can get caught out. People have, as I've said, people have taken photographs of birds on holidays, and then there's an infamous case a few years ago. Somebody photographed a bird when they're on holiday in Fiji, and then a year later tried to claim that they saw it, that they took the photo off Gippsland or something. So those things tend to fall apart. But the more common stringing, it's often self-delusion. It's that fine line when you don't get a good view of a bird and naturally you want to see the rarer thing rather than the common thing. And so where you go, where you start to fudge at the edges of the lexicon and
you're rounding up, not down.
You're rounding up, yeah. So you're going, well, that possibly could have been, a tufted duck, but it flew off, so I can't really tell. And so over the day, that possible becomes a probable, which may end up becoming a definite and goes down in your book as in, well, what else could it be? And it's just automatically going for the more exotic.
A lifer.
Lifer, this is for the listers, the twitchers, the people who keep a list of all the birds they see, and a lifer is the number one desire. It is it's a new bird that you've seen in your life. So it's what's called your life list. Bird watchers will have a lot of lists: their backyard list, their suburb list, their state list, their country list.
Yeah.
List.
I think this sounds like my dad.
Yeah, the life list is the big one, really.
And to grip off. I like these phrasal verbs, right? To dip out and to grip off.
Yes, gripping off. Being gripped off is not as pleasant as it may sound.
Or as crude.
Yes, it's essentially it's when somebody who has seen a bird goes up to somebody who hasn't seen the bird, i.e. a dipper, somebody who's dipped out on seeing a bird, and basically rubs it in that they've seen it and this other person hasn't. So have
you seen these photos? I took all these photos. They're really good.
and sometimes it's malicious and sometimes it's just bird watchers can be a bit insensitive, a bit singularly focused. So,
lost some books there, but keep going.
So they're Yeah, so yeah, it is that thing where they're showing the back of the camera photos. Oh, look at this beautiful plumage. Oh, look at this. You can see all the identifying features, and the poor dipper is sitting there just quietly wanting to die.
Right. All right. Two more. A pill.
What's that?
A pill.
A pill.
Yeah, I think this was. I think you wrote down a fat person or something in this one.
Oh, hang on.
Let me check it out. What have you got here? Pill, another name for a football. What a twitcher soon becomes if they don't get to the bird they're looking for. I wasn't sure if that was a reference to them becoming too fat because they, get frustrated and on the road all the time.
Oh, no. That's, with the glossary, I was doing it because I was going through and looking at Australianisms as well as birderisms. And, I think I talked about Australian football and how we sometimes call the football the pill, and then as a joke, I added in the pill is also an Australian slang term for somebody who's making a nuisance of themselves. But it's like a pest, really. Oh, that bloke's a pill.
And flush.
Flush is to. Doesn't sound as rude as it's not as rude as it sounds. Flush is a questionable practice where people want to see a bird but they can't find it, and they know it's in particularly a field or a bush or something, so they will barge into the bird's to its habitat and try and get the bird to flush. It's a similar term to what they use in shooting, shooting pheasants and things like that.
Flush it out of somewhere.
Flush it out, yeah. Bird watchers don't necessarily use beaters very much to flush birds like the grouse shooters do in Britain, but
and this is where that expression comes from, to beat around the bush.
Yes, yeah, it's there is a bit of an overlap between shooting and birding, because in the early days of ornithology, most ornithologists didn't use binoculars.
Yeah,
good quality optics didn't exist. Field guides didn't exist. They basically used their gun to identify birds. It was like, what's that? I'll shoot it and find out. Unfortunately, we've generally moved on from there, but a lot of those terms kind of transferred through the ages. And I've always said that, in some ways, birdwatching still appeals to that prime instinct of hunting, of getting of conquering something. But I say it's because you don't shoot it or usually put yourself or it in life-threatening situations. It's more like hunting for wimps.
Well, it feels like that with photography, right? And it's probably why we use the verb to shoot. You shoot someone, or you take some photos, right? I'm going to go take a few shots, but it's probably from shooting like with a gun. But it is funny. I had that sort of urge. I'm like, I want to go out, see nature and, see animals. Hunting or just bird or animal photography, mate.
Yeah. It's, I've had debates with hunters and shooters before, and they'll say, but, and I actually do understand where they're coming from, that a lot of the genuine hunters, categorize them like that, not just the yobbos, but they go out, they feel like they're getting into nature, into the world of their prey. They're following their prey. They're attuned to it. It's just they kill it at the end.
Yeah.
And they say you can't get that from anything else. It's a great connection with nature in that sense. Okay, well, actually, yes, because birdwatchers do exactly that. We just don't harm. In most cases, we never harm the bird. We never harm the subject of our prey at the end.
I think that's why I tend to have a bit more respect for, say, bow hunters versus just people with rifles. I mean, I'm sure there are good and bad people in both groups, but it seems like from the amount that I know from bow hunters, they seem to have to be very selective. They have to make sure that their shot will definitely kill, or they won't take it because they don't want to wound the animal. And they'll spend 3 or 4 days trying to find something like a deer. Usually they're hunting invasive animals as well,